Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the World's Best Dad Show. You are here with Brian and Adam. We did a previous recording. I came in weird. This time I'm coming in hot.
Come in
Brian,
hot.
woo! Looking forward to seeing you and to talking to you about the thing that we have lined up to talk about today, Brian.
Oh man, I'll tell you what, when you come in hot, it gives me energy, Adam. And so let me just respond with some heat here. This show is the world's best dad show. And there's another one named the same thing, but we don't care because we are the world's best dads, and this is our show. It's our show title. And you know what? The show is brought to you by Fortunato Chocolate, the chocolate company that we own, www.fortunatochocolate.com. And if anybody's interested in some really good chocolate made from some really good cacao, which we buy in the jungles of northern Peru, paying a really good price to really good people that farm cacao there, you can find it at that website I just said, or come to our store in Issaquah, Washington. Come visit us. Why not? Why would you be in the whole Northwest region and not come to Issaquah, Washington and visit us, Adam?
You
Why?
should do that, by the way. You should
Yeah,
do that. Come Saturday morning. That's when we're usually there together.
that's
The
right.
link to the website is in the description. Also,
Hmm.
if you like the show, maybe
Hmm.
mash the like button and mash the subscribe button. Can you mash the subscribe button?
I don't know, but you can express your approval of the show by clicking like or mashing subscribe or giving it a thumbs up. Give it the old thumbs up, the old two thumbs up.
Or you know what?
Snap
Even if
back.
you don't do anything like that, just somewhere and you
Hmm.
just mash something in your house. Mashed
Just
potatoes,
sure, mashed potato.
parsnips,
Uh,
any kind of starchy kind of plant-based food you have in the house, mash it up.
yeah, you can. I mean, we don't call it mashed apples. That's applesauce, but it's basically mashed
Just
apples. So do
mash
that.
whatever.
Yeah, mash it.
We'll accept any kind of mashing on our behalf.
Absolutely, absolutely. But and also, I just want to say, hey, thank you to anybody who's listening to this, watching this, in any way related to or knowledgeable about this show. I would just want to say thank
Thank you.
you. And
Thank you.
anybody who's enjoying the chocolate and the stuff that we sell at www.fortunatochocolate.com, thank you very much. We appreciate it more than words can say.
Way to sneak in another mention of the website, bro.
Well,
You're a pro.
repetition,
You're a
marketing
pro.
is all about the repetition,
Hey,
bro.
also maybe consider the book Finding Fortunato that's coming out on June 4th.
Finding Fortunato, finding Fortunato, finding
Finding
Fortunato.
Fortunato, Finding Fortunato, Finding Fortunato. Yeah.
That's right.
All right. Very good. Now, I got two questions, Brian.
Okay.
One you just made me think of. The second one
Mhm.
will be the main purpose of the show.
Excellent.
First, you mentioned there's another show with the same name, but you said we are the real world's best dads. What
Right.
if you had to have a world's best dad competition? What would the events be?
Let's see. Diaper change, probably
You want
diaper.
to go about diaper change, but how
I
would you
mean,
do
that's like
that?
the kind of the
You just use
foundational skill.
you just use a doll, like so you just use a doll probably
No,
for
no, no.
that.
You'd have to get a real baby to participate in this. I mean,
Live,
you got
get a bunch of live babies.
get some live babies lined up. It's like one of those races at the baseball stadium where the babies try to race and they get distracted and they can't. It's babies out there. There's diaper. Let me tell you something. At any point in time, when I was a dad with kids at diaper age, if someone had come to me and said, "Listen, are we going to hold off on changing the next poopy diaper? I want to try it myself to be part of this best dad competition," I would have said, "My friend, take the baby,
Yeah, yeah.
change the poopy diaper, knock yourself out. Best
Also,
of luck in the
I
competition."
don't know exactly how we turned this into an event, but
Hmm.
one time I was in the airport and I had
Hmm.
because I got three sons. You already know that. I'm just saying that for the rest of the people who
Right.
might be
Yeah. No,
listening to
I'm
the show.
aware.
Yeah,
I'm
you
aware
know.
of your sons. Yeah.
I got one son on
Hmm.
my shoulders like this,
Hmm.
and I'm carrying a backpack because we're in the airport,
Oh
and
yeah.
I'm pulling along some luggage, and I
Hmm.
had something else on my other arm, or maybe I was carrying like my other kid in my other arm because he was asleep
Hmm.
or something. I was really loaded down,
Yeah.
and somebody dropped something, and there he was up talking to the customs guy at the airport
Hmm.
because we were traveling to Peru, and so I power squatted down, holding a
Hmm.
kid here, and
Yes.
picked up the thing off the ground and handed it back up to the guy who was on my shoulders. And someone said, "Dude, that was a powerful dad squat
That's
right
right. So
there."
that's another part of the competition would definitely be either the laden power squat, okay, that as opposed to the unladen,
Laden.
the laden power squat, or it could just be the awkward heavy lift where you've got your arms at a weird angle and you're trying to keep your shoulder up because the thing is slipping down, and then somebody, yeah, like there's a couple ways to
I
go with
like the
that.
idea of introducing a little bit of precision. So all that, but
Hmm.
then you got to pick up something.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
I picked up something flat, like a book,
Hmm.
which because it's the static electricity can kind of stick to the ground.
Hmm.
You got to kind of
I don't know about that effect that you're talking about. I've never had a book stick to the ground from stat. I've had a balloon make my hair stand on end when I had hair. But
but so you understand the static electricity though, how that can work.
I'm scientifically literate. Sure,
Yeah.
yes.
Have you ever had to pick a book, flat child's book, up off the ground that's got a wide surface
While
area?
heavily laden at the
Yeah.
airport, I can't say I
You got
have.
to get your fingers up underneath it, bro.
By the way, that's one way in which I'm definitely, my kids are illiterate, as am I. So we're definitely not best
Oh, you
at
don't travel with
that
books?
category. What's that? No, I can't read. I'm not aware of how to read, and I've not been able to teach my kids how either. So yeah, that's in that particular aspect of fathering, I'm failing. I'm
Okay.
failing.
I'm
Yeah.
just quick note to self: call Child Protective Services on Brian after this show
Oh
is over.
no. I knew this would happen. Why did I get involved in a fathering show in the first place? I'm a terrible.
I love you, bro. But
Yeah.
I owe loyalty to your children, so I am going to be. You're going to
You're
force me to
doing the
place
right
that
thing.
call. Yeah.
You're doing the right thing.
All right, and now the main question for consideration here on the show,
Yes.
Brian. You ready?
I'm ready. Shoot it to me.
Here we go. Given that kids didn't ask to be born at all,
That we know of.
that we know of.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is this so? You're foreshadowing your
We don't
answer to this
know.
question.
I'm just saying we don't know who asked what and where and
We
who
don't
and
know. There
when.
may
We
be
don't know.
something metaphysical happening that we're not
That's
aware
right.
of.
We have no
But as far
conclusive
as we
proof
can
that kids have
tell,
asked.
it's a human life starts off as like a small collection of cells
Mm-hmm.
and then grows into a living, breathing human being. As far as we know, none of us gets to choose our parents.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you could choose your parents, why would you choose some of the parents who end up being like really bad parents
Yeah.
who might
No,
abandon you?
nobody would.
No,
Nobody would.
nobody would. So as far as we could see, nobody really chooses your parents,
Mm-hmm.
which means your children did not choose to be born to you,
Mm-hmm.
nor did they have any choice over the matter or any
Mm-hmm.
say. So by what right does a parent, I'm talking philosophically and ethically here,
Mm-hmm.
by what right does a parent derive any sort of power over their children to impose their will on their children? Go ahead, Brian.
I
You
have
started
thoughts.
off.
Okay, I have thoughts. So
All right.
let us imagine that you are in a park with a bunch of kids and other parents, etc., and all of a sudden, a dangerous wild animal, a lion or an alligator, shows up in the park. Now, nobody asked for that wild animal to be there. The wild animal presumably did not intend to be there around these people, and yet there you are in a park in a crowded place. So it almost becomes unimportant whether anybody asked for it to happen. You can't know the reality of that. You can, in a sense, only deal with the reality of the fact that we are here. The kids are here. The kids are here, and they are part of a society, a culture. And so therefore so you're talking about the ethics. I am not one to get twisted over the ethics of a situation that I didn't have any say in or control. I can only affect the ethics of the situation I find myself in and have some control over. So the givens that I can determine with fairly reliable, definition are that I'm here, my kids are here, I brought them in, and I'm responsible, and we're all part of a society, and we want that society to be a certain way. And it's incumbent upon us to then do the things that it takes to make those kids into good members of that society, the society that we want to be a part of. So I am not one for sort of ethical teeth gnashing about how we got to a place. I'm much more focused on the fact that we're in the place and what can we do to make that place the best place it can be.
All right, let me frame this in more pragmatic terms.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say because right now you have a 9-year-old.
I have a
And
9-year-old boy.
he's a sweet kid. So
he's
not
great little guy.
I don't see him giving you very many real serious problems right now.
No, not
But
yet.
let's just say he's 13
Mm-hmm.
and he says, because he plays soccer, all right?
Mm-hmm.
And he comes to you and he just says, "Hey, Pop, I'm skipping soccer practice today."
Mm-hmm.
And you say, "Oh, no, you're not, because I paid for the thing and people are depending on you to be there. You're a member of a team. It's just not right." And he says, "Well, who are you to tell me what I got to do? I don't want to go to soccer, so I'm not going. Now what?" But first tell me what you would do in that scenario, and then tell me by what right you think
Sure.
should be able to do it.
Absolutely. So a 13-year-old is a little bit different than a 9-year-old. With a 9-year-old, you might take a little bit more of a forceful approach. With a 13-year-old, they have a higher cognitive ability. So you might want to reason with them a little bit and sort of say, why don't you want to go? Now, maybe there's a good reason. Maybe he's burned out and he needs a day off, because we all need a mental health day from work, and if he feels like that, if it's getting to be job-like and he's only 13. So I can see a scenario with a 13-year-old where I might have a talk through it and I might come to see it his way, because 13-year-olds have agency, in a way that maybe 9-year-olds don't quite as much, right? But sure, I've paid for it. You've made a commitment. Those are all sort of compelling arguments. And I think you have to, and of course, there's always carrot and the stick, which is hey, by honoring your commitments, you get access to some rewards that might be important to you. And by not doing it, you're going to probably suffer some sanctions that are going to be uncomfortable for you. Now, by what ethical right do I have to impose this on them since they didn't ask to be here?
Or really to even play soccer necessarily.
Right.
Because you guys got them into soccer in the first place.
Well, I would only say that it seems like through the long course of human history, we are animals existing in a world full of other organisms. We're a higher functioning animal, and you can boil it all down to, at some rate, our whole purpose is to procreate and continue the survival of our species, right? And so by that gauge, it is our job to bring kids into the world. They don't have to ask for it. The whole point of their existence is to be here. The whole point of our whole existence is to be here. And so the ethics are that we must bring kids under that scenario. We must bring kids into the world.
We're biologically wired to procreate ourselves.
That's right. And if we don't want to see the species devolve into a non-viable collection of disparate units that cannot work together for the betterment of the species, then we do have a moral and ethical imperative to sort of train those new members of the collective in how to be harmonious parts of the collective to further the survival of the species.
I think that right there is really pretty strong, because there is going to be a point in all of our lives as fathers. We're talking about fathers, where your kids are going to look you in the eyes and they're going to say, "Nah, I'm not doing it your way."
That's right.
Like, I'm just not.
Now, have any of your kids sort of gotten to, you have a boy that's older than my oldest son.
I have an 11-year-old, and it's not happening explicitly, but the reason why I'm trying to work through the ethics, because usually ethics precede actions. So I'm trying, and I believe that. I believe even if you don't have, because you just mentioned before, you don't really deal like in the ethical underpinnings. You just sort of handle the situation as it comes.
I'm not a highly philosophical guy.
No, but we all are kind of behind the scenes, even if you haven't actually thought it through and put it down in writing or said it out loud. We all do govern our behavior based on some kind of internal ethical code that we have. Like, you won't just go steal from the grocery store, right?
No, I would not.
Even if you could, even if the situation.
I could. In fact, I'll just disclose something. I used to be a guy that stole things.
Yeah.
I was a person that stole things until a certain point in my life when I had a revelation, which I won't really get into the details of that, but I had a revelation that it was really revelatory, and I stopped cold turkey and have not stolen anything since, to the point where if someone gives me the wrong change and it's in my favor, I return it to them and make it square. I will not steal. I'm very adept at stealing things from the grocery store, but I choose not to.
And so that's an example of what I'm talking about. You had some revelatory situation which changed your ethical code, even if you don't talk about it.
Correct.
It exists. So I'm already starting to see some, like, the beginnings of pushback from my oldest son. And I'm trying to think through what is the right way for me to be, because I want to do what's in the best interest of my child. And if you're talking about the animal kingdom, which is what you were just talking about, what that basically like will boil all the way down to is essentially might makes right. The bigger, stronger animal is the one that dictates the terms to the rest of the pride.
And especially when the bigger, stronger animal is exclusively providing the food and the shelter.
Correct. But it's even if the male lion, for example, isn't the one doing the hunting, they provide some protection. But still, when they show up, they're the bigger, stronger animals, so they eat first. And they might even kill some cubs when they come around.
I'm pleased that obviously you're the lion in this. I'm pleased that you have such a high opinion of yourself that you're.
I don't want to be that. I mean, I'm not a lion. I mean,
and not like the adult sea cucumber or something. So good for you. Good for you.
And in strict point of fact, as a father, as the father of the house, you could easily impose your will through your physicality.
Up to a point, you can. But see, of course, your oldest child is not as old as my oldest child, because I can tell you that what you're talking about starts to change. So now your oldest son is 11. He's older than my son, but I have a daughter who's about to turn 16.
16.
That kind of physical imposition, first off, there's a different dynamic between parents and children of different genders. And there's a different dynamic once a kid gets old enough where they can sort of viably be out of the house and not necessarily under your control. And so there's that dynamic changes, and you have to re-examine sort of the approach. I think also that dynamic tends to be a little bit more clear cut between fathers and sons.
Yeah. Well, so, and the
Yeah.
thing that I've been wrestling with, because I am
Mhm.
one of these guys who does think philosophically,
Mm-hmm.
and I try to get my opinions on something straight before I get into it. And I'm just thinking about it. At some age, it might be 11, but it might even be younger. Kids seem to me to be old enough and cognizant enough to make more decisions than parents, I think, generally will allow for. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at my kid, and the more and more I look at him, I'm going, all right, if he doesn't, what if he just tells me, like, I don't even care? Because what if he just tells me I don't even care about school anymore? I'm just not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you find yourself, are you grounding? Are we taking stuff away? Are we disciplining through punishment? And if so, I just think that there is some cutoff where you can't really impose your will through punishment anymore.
That's right.
And I'm feeling like I'm right now, I'm feeling like it's younger than I normally would have assumed. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing that I'm feeling that if I try to impose too much or punish too much or discipline or force my view of the world on him, it will actually uh sever the relationship more than it will do him good. And in the long
Yes.
run, it will be a poor decision. And I have one example of this. I had a
Mm-hmm.
buddy in high school who, when he was 16, told everybody who would listen, like, I don't care about school. I'm going to be a fisherman. And he just took like 4 periods of auto shop and got F's in his other classes. And his
Mm-hmm.
parents let him. And he went
Mm-hmm.
on to be a fishing boat captain, and it worked out really well for him. His parents supported him, and they got along and they loved each other. And I know you're planning to you would like to send your kids to college. But what if Dominic, your 9-year-old, told you right now, I'm not going to college. I don't care about school. I'm not doing it.
If he told me right now, I'd say we'll see. But if he told me when he was my daughter's age, then we'd have to really look at what the alternatives are. I am of the opinion that you can't force a person to learn. So if they have a different path in mind, then I feel like as long as they can tell me why it makes sense, then it's my job to support that path, and try to make it pay. Try to make it pay off, not just in the monetary sense, but in the life
Yeah.
achievement sense. So I'm going to presume that kid's parents had some in-depth conversations with the kid. And of course, you're talking about 16. So I think what you're talking about, the sanction part, the power of the sanction starts to wane, and starts to wane in effectiveness and in sort of ethical preferability
Yep.
as the kid becomes intellectually and emotionally developed and starts to be able to have an actual rationale and an experience set behind the kinds of decisions they're trying to make. So I think a good parent is one that adjusts their approach as time goes on to take into account where that kid is in their intellectual and emotional, growth, to be able to calibrate that sort of risk, that sort of reward, punishment, motivation, motivational tactic.
Yeah.
That kind of flexibility, I think, is really important to considering yourself a good, not considering yourself, to being a good parent.
Yeah. And in most cases, for example, at work, or if you're playing for a sports team, if you don't comply with the boss's requests, or if you don't comply with
Mm-hmm.
the coach's request, then you can go look for another job, or you can play for a
Mm-hmm.
different team. They can fire you, they can bench you. And that is just not, those aren't options for when you're
We've
parenting.
all wished it was.
Oh man, sometimes I thought with my kid, if I could fire you,
The coaches and players have
you'd
all
be
wished that
you'd be fired right now, man.
absolutely.
But
And
also probably,
the kids have thought like, I need a new coach.
yeah,
This
no, I'm
guy
sure he's. I
this
was
guy
good.
is not a motivator.
Yeah. So I think the conclusion of what I've been thinking is that
Mm-hmm.
it is underappreciated,
Mm-hmm.
the extent to which you should be trying to convince your children rather than coerce them.
Mm-hmm.
Much younger, much younger than I think a lot of people will accept. I think
Mm-hmm.
convincing is far and away a better way to go than coercion on ethical grounds. And I do
Mm-hmm.
believe that ethics precede action. So I think that the best ethical thing, as far as I could tell from having my 3 kids and being a father, and if there's other younger fathers listening or other fathers who have kids the same age,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't choose to be here. They got free will. Coercion seems like you wouldn't do it to anybody else. You couldn't,
Mm-hmm.
because they could leave. So you can't really employ coercion against anybody. It doesn't seem right that you should also be able to employ it against your kids. Although, as you're saying, as a parent, you have an ethical obligation to turn your kid into a good, upstanding member of society. Societally, communally,
Yeah.
everybody's depending on you to do that. So if coercion is necessary, if it's the only means that remains for you, you
Yes.
probably have to utilize it, but it's not a good option.
Well, coercion is sort of the parenting equivalent of war in terms of statecraft. It's a last resort and not a desirable method for achieving your outcome. And it's really just the ultimate extension of politics. There's really rarely a military finish to a conflict. It must be political. It's the same with coercion. It is the excuse me.
That's good.
The final resort, the hard.
Come on, man.
I'll let you finish, Adam.
No, you're right. And no, and that's good. And anybody who would lead with coercion or lead with a military option, you would say that this person is a tyrant and a war criminal. You would they wouldn't be a good member of the international community if they led with violence. And I think that's good. I think there's some philosophical consistency to that idea that coercion should really be your last option.
Truly a last resort. Yeah, the kind of person that would lead with coercion is sort of by definition not really doing a great job.
All right.
Not approaching it in a good way. But I just have to give you a funny, like, I can kind of tell you the flip side view of this, because I had this interaction. I've had this interaction with both my kids. Now, I'm a kind of a sarcastic dad, and I can have a little bit of sarcastic fun with my kids, and they've picked up the sarcasm as well. And at one point, my daughter was kind of jokingly not agreeing with me, or jokingly kind of not kind of doing what I want her to do. And I said, "Oh boy," sarcastically, I've raised a monster here. This is I've failed as a parent. Why did I even get into this? Why I didn't have to be a parent." She said, "Hey, look at it from my perspective. I didn't ask to be here." She said exactly what you're saying. And she said, "Hey, you made your choice, old man." She was basically saying, "You made your choice, old man. Now you deal with the consequences." Yeah. That's right. She was using the kids' equivalent.
End of year bundle just went live.
I hope you didn't hear that. She was sort of employing the alternate technique on me to say, "Hey, I didn't ask to be here, so now you deal with the consequences of having brought me into the world," and turning it around on me. So it definitely, it's something that kids also have noticed, the discrepancy that you're talking about and the sort of moral quandary it puts us all.
It is. Yep. And of course, kids are looking for any excuse they can find to be lazy. So yes, they're tremendous philosophers of laziness, tremendous ethicists.
Every kid is
how to avoid hard work.
Every kid is a lawyer in waiting when it comes to how to negotiate their own lazy time.
Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, Amara Horsley.
Correct.
Great philosophers.
100% correct. She definitely dug deep for that one.
All right. Well, we can probably go on talking about this, but I think we're up against our time limit, so we're going to sign off. Brian, any concluding thoughts?
My only concluding thoughts is I want to go back to just what you said. It's so much better to convince than compel, especially in the parenting realm. I think it leads to kids that are less quick to go to, compulsion, to try to force others to do their bidding, and kids that are a little bit more structured in how they think about getting what they need out of life. So I think it's much better, and I definitely model my parenting on the convince rather than compel paradigm, as long as it's possible, but you must be willing, as in statecraft, to drop the hammer when the need be, and the need will be. Yeah,
and I'm probably coming more around to that, and I think I started off because my parents, our mom and my dad, were pretty liberal. I mean, they weren't
not in the political sense, but in the sense of letting
me have a lot of freedom.
Right.
And they were not disciplinarians by any means, not at all. So you and I had a lot of freedom, and I think in some ways that led me down some bad paths. And I came into parenting thinking I'm going to try to keep my kids more in the straight and narrow. And that led me to maybe being more strict than I should have been. And now, after having experienced that and having tried it and lived through it, now I'm coming back around to thinking that, there's some middle ground in here where you don't want to be loosey goosey, but you also don't want to be over disciplinarian, and you don't want to resort to it too fast for the exact reason that you said. I think the statecraft analogy is the best analogy. I think that was a really, really good analogy that would work well. So thank you for introducing that. It took us a while to reason our way into it, but I like it. So that's
Excellent.
it. If anybody liked the show, mash the like button. If you want to subscribe, mash the subscribe button.
Mashed potatoes, baby.
Mashed parsnips, buddy. famous dish.
that phrase, that old chestnut.
Yeah. And if you like fine chocolate, not mashed, check out www.fortune.chocolate.com. And we're going to sign off. We'll talk to y'all later.
Thanks, everybody.